Hey y'all, it's Adriele, and welcome back to another episode of It's the Bread Aisle, a series dedicated to Black women, for Black women, to explore different topics, ideas, thoughts, experiences, you name it, we're here for it. Today I wanted to come and talk to you about imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome. I've been networking with a lot of women, as I always do. It's amazing. But one thing I've noticed in these conversations I've had and these coaching sessions that I've been having with people is that this idea of imposter syndrome is so heavily ingrained, and it's used so often to describe oneself, and it makes me cringe because it just does not sit well with me that the term imposter syndrome was coined by a very high achieving white woman, and it was coined for other very high achieving white women. There was actually a really great article last year on Harvard Business Review, written by two women about imposter syndrome. And the summary of this article, I think, just sums up exactly how I feel. And so I'm going to actually read it to you and then just kind of talk through it a little bit. The title of the article is called, and forgive me, I'm looking at my device and telling you, but the title of it is Stop Telling Women That They Have Imposter Syndrome. And it was written by Ruchika Tulsian, and apologies if I'm mispronouncing your name, and Jodianne Burry. And the summary says, imposter syndrome, or doubting your abilities and feeling like a fraud at work, is a diagnosis often given to women, but the fact that it's considered a diagnosis at all is problematic. The concept, whose development in the 70s excluded the effects of systemic racism, classism, xenophobia, and other biases, took a fairly universal feeling of discomfort, second-guessing, and mild anxiety in the workplace and pathologized it, especially for women. The answer to overcoming imposter syndrome is not to fix individuals. Let me read that one more time. The answer, and I agree with this, full stop. The answer to overcoming imposter syndrome is not to fix individuals, but to create an environment that fosters a number of different leadership styles and where diversity of racial, ethnic, and gender identities is viewed as just as professional as the current model. Now, let me zoom into that last bit real quick, right? Just as professional as the current model. The current model, for anybody that missed it, the current professional model, the current corporate model is built on the foundation of white supremacy culture. I'm gonna list out the characteristics on the screen, boom, 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 boom. And I'm gonna also drop a link in the bottom, but white supremacist culture embodies so much that is a part of corporate America today in professional settings. Things such as fear and uncertainty, the sense of scarcity, the sense of constantly fighting against the clock, not having enough time to get things done, that sense of urgency. Those are all characteristics of white supremacist culture. Now, people get cringy when they hear white supremacy or white supremacist culture. By default, the term simply means that the ideas, the thoughts, the concepts, the beliefs of white people, white individuals are superior to those of any other group. It's a social construct, as is race. Race is a social construct. We look at people and based on their features, we loosely determine what race they fit into, right? What racial category, based on their features and or shared ancestry. And we can kind of take this a lot of steps back, right? If we're talking about Western culture in particular, we can get into slavery and how the foundation of slavery set the tone for corporations and our professionalism and all of that. If we're thinking globally, similar things apply, right? Colorism, classism, those were all concepts that set the tone for how organizations are defined. You think about it, you go into organization, even if they say there's no hierarchy, child, everybody has a title. No. Everybody has a title. It's based on a hierarchy, class, right? We're ranking people constantly, and that's just part of the world the world of professionalism and corporate life that we've built, right? And so this idea that imposter syndrome exists and that you are doubting yourself, doubting your abilities, it challenges the concept of white supremacy. So this concept of imposter syndrome, in which you feel like a fraud, you feel as if your abilities you're doubting your abilities, it becomes internalized. And this is part of oppression. Oppression becomes one of the four eyes of oppression, is that it becomes internalized, right? The things that society tells you, that other people tell you, you start to believe them and internalize them. And so that's why I always say, forget imposter syndrome. It is another social concept. Jesus. It is another social construct, right? And the reality is, and again, why I love that article so much, is that we don't need to fix people, right? People don't need to come in and try to adjust themselves to fit into that little bitty slot, that one little bitty slot that you decided to make for them, right? The reality is that we need to be looking at our working environments, our professional spaces, our organizations, and questioning them, right? Why is it that people that don't fit the majority population come in and aren't able to succeed or thrive or be themselves? It's not them. It's your space. It's your culture. It's your organization, right? And again, connecting the dots again to white supremacy culture, right? I'm thinking about white supremacy, the foundation of slavery, the foundation of America. It's by design, right? People, groups of historically marginalized people were meant to remain oppressed. And so the systems that worked in the past when it was more acceptable to treat Black individuals and other historically marginalized people as less than or non-human, that's no longer flying today, right? And so that means that we have to adjust our organizations, our working spaces, so that people can come into them. That is all, when I do my work, when I'm hosting webinars, teaching workshops, facilitating discussions, talking about inclusive workplaces, that is what we're talking about, is creating this space where you can come in and thrive. So for Black women especially, walk in and make the space. You are not an imposter. You belong there. You do not need to dim your light. You do not need to change your hair. Full stop. You don't need to be more articulate. I speak how I speak because this is just how I speak, right? But you do not need to do anything to fit a mold, right? And if you got into a space, if you got a job, if you were hired into a role, if you made it through 11,000 interviews at whatever, no longer Mang, right? It's called Mang now. If you made it into whatever it is that you're doing and you made it there, you belong there. You do. And you should not let anybody else tell you any different. Your crown doesn't need to be adjusted. It's perfect where it is. You don't need to change, like I said, how you speak. You don't need to change how you pace yourself. You don't need to change your boundaries. Hold all of that and hold it close. Allow the space to adjust for you. Step in and say, hey, I'm here. Imposter syndrome is not a thing. Let it go, let it go, let it go. You are more than worthy. You have the skills, you have the ability, and what you don't have yet, you can acquire, just like you acquired whatever skills and abilities you have currently. It's that simple. So forget imposter syndrome. It's not a thing. Quick shout out to Mess and Backstage Capital for this amazing mug. It is one of my favorite mugs. But forget imposter syndrome. I'm not being paid for this. If you have any amazing products that you'd like me to include on my videos, drop me a line. I'm not trying to get money off of promoting Black people's stuff, quite frankly. I love mugs. I love supporting Black businesses. So you'll see me plug a lot of different things on this channel. But that's it. I just wanted to quickly talk about imposter syndrome. I was introduced to the concept of imposter syndrome by a white woman when I was working in a professional space. And when she told me, I was like, oh yeah, that's me. I'm doubting myself. I'm doubting my abilities. But what I didn't know again was that that concept was created by another white woman who didn't have all of the other oppressive that I've had in my lifetime and that I will have in my lifetime. And so for me to use that term, it just does not fit. It does not apply to my life. I'm not an imposter. I have the abilities, and I'm not doubting myself. The things I don't know, baby, I got Google. Doop, doop, doop. I got YouTube. Doop. Reddit, hey, how y'all doing? Quora, hey. Library, hey, let me go flip them. We have the resources. Black women are one of the most resourceful groups of folks on this earth. And again, not a monolith. We all come in different sizes, shapes, thoughts, experiences, all that stuff, you know? But we're here and we have the ability, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let anyone try to dim your light or your abilities or your experience or your credentials or whatever else. Step into the room, create the space for yourself. Imposter syndrome. Until next time, it's been another episode of It's the Bread Aisle. I'll be sure to link those articles below and the other resources that I mentioned. Please like and subscribe. Absolutely subscribe, because I'm going to be posting more information and videos like this. But I hope to see you all again soon.